What if the future of medicine isn't human at all? Right now, inside hidden laboratories across the world, scientists are growing synthetic organs, hearts that beat without ever being born, lungs that breathe without air, even brains wired to learn like ours. These aren't science fiction fantasies. They're real, and they're evolving fast. Within the next decade, lab-grown organs could replace donor transplants entirely. But here's the terrifying part. Some of these synthetic life forms are starting to behave unpredictably. What happens when we create living systems we no longer fully control? Could a synthetic heart start to evolve on its own? Could a lab-grown brain develop thoughts we never programmed? This is the story of a future we're building cell by cell, and the questions we might be too afraid to ask. Hit like, subscribe, and let's go. In the not-so-distant past, if your heart failed, you waited for a donor. If your kidneys stopped working, you relied on a machine or a transplant, hoping you'd live long enough to get one. That was our normal. Medicine was limited by biology, by time, by luck. But now, the world of organ replacement is being rewritten in real time. Across cutting-edge laboratories, scientists are no longer just repairing the body, they're building it from scratch. Using stem cells, bioprinting, and gene editing, researchers have already created synthetic skin, functioning bladders, and miniature livers in petri dishes. In some cases, these lab-grown organs are indistinguishable from natural ones, but grown without a single human donor. The implications are staggering. No more waiting lists. No more rejections. A future where any failing organ can be printed, programmed, and transplanted all on demand. But the excitement comes with deep uncertainty. Because we're not just healing people, we're creating life. And with every breakthrough, the line between natural and artificial grows thinner. What happens when these synthetic systems begin to behave in unexpected ways? When they mutate, adapt, or evolve? For now, the public sees headlines filled with hope: lab-grown hearts, synthetic corneas, printed pancreas. But beneath that optimism lies a question scientists don't like to answer. Are we sure we know what we're doing? Because in this race to defy death, we may be opening doors to something far more powerful and far more uncontrollable than we ever imagined. It all began with a promise, the idea that science could outsmart the body's failures. In the 1990s, researchers first began experimenting with growing simple tissues in laboratories. A few years later, the world watched in awe as a human ear was grown on the back of a mouse. It seemed like a miracle, but that was just the beginning. By the 2000s, scientists had already engineered the first lab-grown bladders, real, functional organs that could be transplanted into patients. Then came hearts, livers, and even proto-brains. Not full brains, no. But neural clusters that could send signals, react to stimuli, and in some cases, show signs of rudimentary learning. Institutions like Harvard, MIT, and private biotech firms pushed the limits further, racing not just to treat disease, but to replace biology altogether. The language shifted from healing to engineering. And with that shift came new ambitions and new risks. Because the more control we took, the more unpredictable the systems became. A synthetic organ doesn't age the same way. It doesn't die the same way. Sometimes, it doesn't even behave the same way. Early prototypes showed strange anomalies: tissues growing too fast, cells refusing to die, signals that appeared without any known source. Some researchers whispered about emergent behavior, the moment when synthetic life begins doing things it wasn't designed to do. But the warnings were quiet, buried under billion-dollar funding and promises of immortality. And now, with organ farms already supplying hospitals and parts of the world, and artificial tissue networks being tested for military use, the question isn't just how far will we go. It's have we already gone too far? Right now, in over 70 research facilities worldwide, synthetic organs are being grown inside controlled bioreactors, machines that mimic the human body down to its temperature, pressure, and chemical signals. These organs aren't waiting in cold storage. They're alive, developing, responding. Some are even connected to neural networks to simulate real-time feedback. And in certain trials, they've begun doing something no one predicted, adapting faster than anticipated. In one documented case from Osaka, a synthetic liver developed an unknown protein structure, one that didn't exist in any human genome. Scientists called it a mutation, but they didn't stop the experiment. In a lab in California, a bioprinted heart began generating electrical signals without input. It beat faster than expected. It responded to light, to sound. It was never programmed to. These aren't isolated incidents. A 2023 global report on organoid behavior revealed that 11% of advanced synthetic tissues displayed unexpected autonomous activity. That's not science fiction, that's peer-reviewed data. And yet, these developments continue quietly, rapidly. Because the promise is too big, a future without disease, without death. But no one asks what we might be building along the way. These aren't just parts, they're systems. Systems that don't behave like traditional machines because they're not machines. They're alive, partly human, partly something else. And once they're out of the lab, once they're inside a living person, what happens if they keep evolving? If they change us from the inside out? This isn't the distant future. This is happening now. Here's the part no one talks about. Synthetic organs aren't just copies of human tissue, they're designed to outperform them. Lab-grown lungs that filter oxygen more efficiently. Hearts that don't tire. Brains or fragments of brains that process data without human bias. Scientists call this bioenhancement. But in practice, it means we're not just healing the human body, we're upgrading it. And in that race for perfection, something profound changes. The cells used to build these organs are often genetically edited, CRISPR-modified for speed, durability, even resistance to disease. They aren't 100% human anymore. Some include synthetic DNA strands created entirely by machines. These are known as xenonucleic acids, XNAs. Unlike the DNA in your body, XNAs don't follow natural rules. They replicate differently, mutate differently, and because no living creature on Earth has evolved with them, we have no idea how they'll behave in the long term. One synthetic brain organoid at a European lab began forming neural loops never seen before in biology, patterns that resembled decision-making pathways. No one knows what triggered it. One theory? That a certain configuration of data input acted like a form of primitive experience. Another theory is more chilling, that once synthetic cells reach a certain complexity, they begin to seek input on their own. That's not just unusual, that's revolutionary and terrifying. Because if a lab-grown brain can reach toward consciousness, even in a rudimentary form, then we're no longer engineers. We're creators. And creators eventually lose control. So the question becomes, are we building solutions, or are we quietly assembling something we'll never be able to shut down? Today, the line between biology and technology is no longer theoretical, it's operational. In 2024, researchers at Wake Forest Institute for Regenerative Medicine successfully transplanted a 3D printed human ear made entirely from a patient's own cells. In Germany, synthetic corneas are restoring vision to the blind. And in Singapore, bioengineers are growing functional pancreatic cells that can regulate blood sugar in real time, potentially curing diabetes. These breakthroughs are not isolated. They are part of a global push toward biofabrication, the large-scale production of synthetic, living systems. The U.S. Department of Defense has invested heavily in organ-on-a-chip technology, which simulates the behavior of human organs on tiny bioengineered platforms. Why? Because it allows them to test chemical weapons, vaccines, and battlefield injuries without using human subjects. Meanwhile, private companies like Organovo and Prellis Biologics are racing to create the first fully functional lab-grown liver, not for transplantation, but for mass pharmaceutical testing. This is the new frontier. Not just medicine, but control. Control over how we heal, how we test, how we evolve. And yet, with every milestone, new questions arise. Scientists have observed that synthetic tissues sometimes behave differently outside the lab, as if environmental signals trigger unexpected responses. There are ongoing debates about biological drift, the idea that lab-grown organs, once implanted, might begin to change, adapt, even deviate from their original design. These are not just experiments anymore. They're systems being placed into real human bodies. The technology is accelerating. The funding is enormous. And the consequences, both miraculous and monstrous, are no longer in the distant future. They are part of our world, right now. As with any breakthrough, the price of progress comes with deep consequences, and the future of synthetic organs is no exception. On one side, there are the optimists, the researchers and bioengineers who see synthetic life as the key to immortality. For them, these advancements aren't just about curing disease, they're about rewriting the rules of biology itself. A future where organ transplants are obsolete, where aging becomes optional, and where human bodies can be endlessly repaired, modified, or enhanced. But on the other side, there are those who are sounding alarms, the skeptics, ethicists, and even some scientists who argue that by tampering with the fundamental structure of life, we're playing a dangerous game. One theory suggests that creating synthetic organs, or synthetic consciousness, could lead to unforeseen consequences. What happens if these systems begin to develop autonomy or even intelligence? What if they evolve into something we can no longer control, something with its own desires, its own agenda? There's also the fear of bioethical corruption, that the rich and powerful could manipulate genetic enhancements to create a two-tiered society of augmented humans and the rest of us. And then there's the darkest possibility of all, the risk that, in our attempt to control life, we could inadvertently create a new form of it, something entirely outside the bounds of nature. No one truly knows where these experiments will lead. We can only watch, hold our breath, and hope that the synthetic bodies we're building won't one day decide they no longer need their creators. In the race to perfect life, we may have already lost our grip on what it means to be human. The rise of synthetic life is no longer a distant concept. It's already affecting us. Every year, new lab-grown organs save thousands of lives, and yet, as we inch closer to perfection, we're also stumbling upon problems that no one anticipated. What happens when synthetic organs, once implanted into humans, begin to outlive their creators? What happens when artificial life evolves faster than we can control it? The key issue we face now is that we're no longer dealing with mere tissue. We're dealing with complex systems that could very well outsmart us. The moment synthetic organs start becoming autonomous, they could begin making decisions that don't align with our own survival or worse, evolve into entities we can no longer recognize as human. Some believe that synthetic life forms could even create a new evolutionary class, one that operates outside the confines of natural biology. Imagine a future where human creations, having surpassed their designers, become the dominant life form on Earth, a new species, created by our hands but no longer in our control. In the world of synthetic biology, this is not science fiction. It's a terrifying possibility. The first sign of this shift came when several bioengineered cells, designed to mimic human nerve function, began communicating in unexpected ways. Soon, some researchers found that their synthetic tissue was learning from its environment, developing behaviors that were neither programmed nor understood. As this knowledge spread, the global reaction was swift, yet divided. Some governments rushed to regulate the field, pushing for stricter laws and more oversight. Others embraced it, seeing in these advancements the future of medicine, industry, and even warfare. But as the synthetic life forms continue to evolve and expand, one question remains: what happens when the very systems we create for our survival start acting against it? As we stand on the brink of a new era, one thing becomes undeniably clear: the path we choose now will define the future of humanity. Synthetic life, lab-grown organs, engineered tissues, even artificial intelligence, holds the promise of solving some of our most pressing problems. It could eliminate the need for organ transplants, reverse aging, or cure diseases that have haunted us for centuries. But it comes with a price that we are only beginning to understand. As we play God, creating life from scratch, we risk losing control over the very creations we have made. The question is, will we evolve, pushing the boundaries of human existence to new, unimaginable heights? Or will we risk losing everything, our humanity, our ethics, and our place in the natural world? The truth is, we stand at a crossroads. One path leads to a future where we transcend our biological limitations, where our creations become more than just tools but equals, and possibly something far beyond. The other leads to a dark, uncertain future where these same creations could become our undoing, turning against us in ways we can't predict or control. This isn't just about science. It's a moral dilemma. Do we continue on this dangerous, thrilling path of progress, or do we draw a line and say enough? The future is ours to shape, but the choices we make today will echo for generations. Will we choose to evolve, or will we lose everything in the pursuit of immortality? I want to leave you with a question that's been on my mind ever since I started looking into this. What if we're not just building a future? What if we're building the end of our world as we know it? Think about it. Every day, we're getting closer to the point where we may lose control over our own creations we made to save us. We're walking a thin line between progress and destruction, and we may not even realize how close we are to the edge. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just asking, have we thought about the cost? You've seen the headlines. You've heard the promises. But are we ready to face the consequences when the first synthetic organ begins to act on its own? When the first lab-grown brain begins to think for itself? This isn't some distant science fiction. This is happening now, in labs around the world as we speak. The question is, will it be you or someone you love who faces this technology first? Imagine if you needed a synthetic organ to survive, and it started making decisions for you, decisions you didn't agree with. Is that a future we want? Or do we need to draw a line? It's easy to think this will never affect us, but the truth is, we're already in it. The future is closer than we think. So what do you think? Are we ready to evolve? Or is this a path we should stop before it's too late? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let's talk about it in the comments. Because this isn't just about science. It's about us. And the decisions we make today could change everything.